Welcome to the Tyler Werner Show, discussing all the latest in Philadelphia sports. And the NFL playoff race is in full force, and the Eagles have reasserted themselves into the NFC wildcard picture as they continue to reign supreme at home and defeat the Atlanta Falcons 24-15. This vaunted Falcons offense was held to several season lows this week against an Eagles defense that was able to bend without breaking. And meanwhile, Ryan Matthews has a 100-plus yard day on the ground with some effective use of Sproles and Smallwood also. And while Carson Wentz didn't have to do a whole lot this game, he looked sharp. Most importantly, Doug Peterson redeemed himself a bit this week, calling the shots on offense. And the Eagles keep playoff talks alive.
And now, here's Tyler Werner.
And yes, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Another week. Back on the winning track here for the Philadelphia Eagles, at least so far. And especially at Lincoln Financial Field. As the Eagles, I don't know if it's, something we've been overlooking. I know I have. I remember last week I mentioned on the Tyler Werner Show that the Eagles have been solid. They've been undefeated at home this season. And ladies and gentlemen, that trend continued this week as the Philadelphia Eagles host the number one offense in the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons offense, and they hold them to 15 points.
Gosh, it went great.
Ladies and gentlemen, a 24-15 win. Definitely some good things to be happy about this game, without question. You kind of go down the board here, and again, this home field advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles, it continues to be a factor. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing to see. This team they've struggled on the road this season, unfortunately. All their losses have been on the road. They've had 3 division games on the road, all losses. I said how that was last week after they lost to the Giants. I mean, that was crippling in a way. It really was. But you know what? They bring it back to Lincoln Financial Field. They play a quality team in the Atlanta Falcons, and they beat them. And look, it's the Falcons. They went to Denver and won. The Falcons went to Seattle and almost won. Came with it, east to west coast in Seattle. Tough place to play. And they almost beat the Seattle Seahawks. So, while the Falcons are a better home team, of course, they haven't been slouches on the road, so to speak. And many of us, including myself, still had the Falcons beating the Eagles on Sunday. But the Eagles, they kind of picked up the pieces after back-to-back division losses in back-to-back weeks. They pick up the pieces and they get the job done at home and beat the Atlanta Falcons, the leaders of the NFC South. And round of applause to Ryan Matthews, who had a great day on the ground, over 100 yards. For the most part, round of applause to Doug Peterson, who called a pretty solid game overall. All right,
Gosh, it went great.
Wasn't not too much to complain about here. I mean, early on, a 3rd and goal where they were trying to do an outside sweep or something to Ryan Matthews, that was definitely questionable. But at the end of the day, Doug Peterson, besides that, he called a pretty good game. And the Eagles, they controlled the clock. Something you would not see in recent years with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Was that like a wise-ass comment?
The Eagles, they controlled the clock. This ground game for the Philadelphia Eagles, it was a Ryan Matthews game. They kept feeding him the ball. And you know what? Couple weeks before that, it was kind of more Darren Sproles getting the carries. But you know what? This week, they start with Ryan Matthews out there. It's almost as if they knew. It's as if Doug Peterson knew. I mean, I've been critical in recent weeks, too, of the whole running back rotation thing. Or supposedly Deuce Staley's in charge. I don't know. I got to think that between the two minds, Doug Peterson and Deuce Staley, they saw something this game. That it was they saw a matchup, and it was a Ryan Matthews game. 2 touchdowns, 109 yards on the ground, 5.7 yards per carry. Solid day. Very solid day. They also mixed in Wendell Smallwood in there. 13 carries for 70 yards. 5.4 average. So, even just between the two guys, 32 carries between the two guys, that is good. About 180 yards. Darren Sproles, he only got the 2 carries. But you know what? They obviously had enough out of Ryan Matthews and Wendell Smallwood. They didn't need to rely on Sproles to get carries this game. 2 for 19, nevertheless, for 9.5 yards per carry. You see, it was the receiving game, ladies and gentlemen, where Darren Sproles really shone this game. It was a big target. 8 receptions for 57 yards. Oh, and how many receptions, let alone how many targets did Dorial Green Beckham get this? Who's supposed to be, one of their top 2 outside wide receivers. He didn't get 1 reception. I don't even think he got targeted all game. He was invisible. So, and Nelson Aguilar. What did he do this? 2 receptions for 7 yards. Look. Clearly, I think Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz, they kind of have it figured out. I think at this point, they just can't. They can't rely on either of those guys, really. I know, and look, it didn't even matter this game. This was a great, credit the defense, and obviously Jim Schwartz and what he was able to cobble up for this game.
Yes, we're gonna pick yes, Jim. I love it, man.
Credit to this defense for throughout the season how good they've been. They've allowed 4 home games now. I believe the number is it 3 touchdowns they've allowed at home on defense all season long in 4 home games. That's just downright unbelievable. That's at home. They just the noise they bring the pressure on Matt Ryan. This game, they contain Julio Jones. Julio Jones, he got his catches, but he was contained. Like, he wasn't getting any big yards after the catch or anything like that. And other than that, they were getting... They did a good job, shutting down the run game. And quite frankly, it was kind of a the Falcons didn't really get to drive a whole lot. And besides Julio Jones, who had 135 yards, that's especially in a PPR league, that's a pretty good fantasy day. In reality football, it didn't really amount to a hill of beans. Because if anything, the Falcons, they pretty much had to rely on field goals, really, to, have points on the board for this game. The Eagles, they contained him, and they controlled the clock. Over 38 minutes time of possession. They had many more plays. They were moving the football. And while it continues to be, I guess you could say disappointing, but at the same time, not surprising with lack of red zone targets, they continue to be a little, inside the 20 in the red zone. They continue to be a little shaky at times. And again, you look at 3rd and goal and at the 6-inch line, perhaps 6 inches away from the end zone, and and outside, occasionally Doug Peterson is he makes a dumb play call like that. All right, and I mean, you say it went to the and it just lost a few yards in the play.
Come on, that's terrible!
But later in the game, fourth quarter, Carson Wentz helps engineer a touchdown drive, and that's encouraging to see. And again, the fact that I don't know, it's just Jordan Matthews is as a slot receiver. It's like he's their number one option, even though he's not an outside receiver. You got nothing on the outside, really. Nelson Aguilar and that one ball late in the game that one incompletion, that drop by Nelson Aguilar, I don't care what it was, a little behind him. He had his hands on the ball. You got to catch that. I mean, seriously. You're a first-round draft pick wide receiver. You got to catch that. And it's been time and time again this season. Nelson Aguilar, he's supposed to be like, a one receiver here, a number one receiver on the team. He's like a 4. Really. Now, so Jordan Matthews, again, he continues to be like the main wide receiving target. But again, you saw Sproles lining up outside, like as a receiver a lot this game. And he caught, 8 balls. They were nickel and diming him again. Kind of a little bit back to that. Zach Ertz getting a little more involved once again. 6 receptions for 55 yards. Not quite the day he had against the Giants, but still at least getting involved a little bit more in recent weeks, which is better to. It's nice to see. Other than that, I mean, again, receiving wise, there's just not. Bryce Treggs is out there, stretching the field a little bit, maybe. Got some speed. That's good to see. But again, Dorial Green-Beckham, I don't even know what to make of him. And sometimes it's just like between weeks, it's like I feel like, especially these games where the Eagles have lost, but games where maybe the Eagles almost have cost themselves because of poor wide receiver play. I feel like the Tyler Werner show, a lot this season has been like, so who sucked more this game? Dorial Green-Beckham or Nelson Aguilar kind of deal, Well, all right, this week it was Nelson Aguilar, 2 receptions. I mean, it's Dorial Green-Beckham. It's like he wasn't even out there, so I don't know if that's a fair comparison this week. But anyway, for this situation, this game, I gotta kind of hand it to Doug Peterson. He and Carson Wentz. Not a whole lot was demanded from him out of this game, but he was sharp. If you look at all his incompletions this game, I mean, a lot of them were drops. I mean, he for the most, I mean, he was pretty sharp. You know, like, there's not a whole lot to say here. I mean, you know, another day with no touchdown passes, but no interceptions. 25 for 36, 231 yards. He was efficient. He managed the game rather well. Not a whole lot was asked out of him, and, you know, yeah, bada bing. But again, when Ryan Matthews gets cooking like he was this game, and you got a nice, you know, complimentary back in Wendell Smallwood, also contributing well on the ground, and the defense is containing this high-powered Falcons offense, then it's a pretty good day. And Caleb Sturgis missing a couple field goals that, you know, normally he would make. That didn't matter, fortunately. And again, this defense, you know, credit to them. They weren't on the field a whole lot this game either. They were able to get off the field at times, and I mean, they did a good job. I mean, Brandon Graham gets in there for another sack this game, having a great season. Connor Barwin, you know, sack, a couple tackles for loss. I mean, he was in the action. Those guys have been solid in recent weeks. And even if they, you know, even if they weren't sacking Matt Ryan, they were being disruptive. And that's a good thing to see. Leotis McKelvin with an interception, obviously a big help. And special teams even. Kenyon Barner. All right, you know what? Josh Huff is not missed at all. And oh yeah, that's right. I forgot to mention. It's like I totally forgot he was even here. That's one less wide receiver, you know, to complain about as of late. I forgot a couple minutes ago when I was talking about, you know, which wide receiver for this Eagles team sucked the most this week. I forgot that Josh Huff was also a part of that mix. But you know what? He was doing pretty well with kick returns this season, helping the special. But then you know what? When Kenyon Barner, between his 3 returns 114 yards worth on kick returns, it's easy to forget about Josh Huff, isn't it? So there you go. You know, Kenyon Barner, he wasn't even used in the backfield this game. But you know what? They put him back there, returned some kicks, and he's returned him 38 yards a kick return on 3 returns. Excellent job. Awesome. So again, I mean, this not much to complain about this day on the Tyler Werner Show. That was a quality win. It came down to the wire, and I was pretty nervous. But they got the job done on their home field. And again, this home field for the Eagles this season continues to be an advantage. They beat the Steelers. Now the Steelers now are reeling. We'll get into that later. But they beat the Steelers impressively early on in the season, when they were at least looking like a better team, even though they were missing Le'Veon Bell that week and a couple other guys. But the Falcons, or not the Falcons, well, yeah, they beat but the Vikings, I mean, who were 5-0, or now 5-4, but they were 5-0 heading into a game against the Eagles at like Lincoln Financial Field, coming off of their bye week. The Eagles beat them convincingly. And then, again, here's this game against the Falcons. You know, they beat them. And so, you know, again, suddenly it's like they're beating some good teams, at least at the time they play them, at home. That's encouraging to see. Especially since down the stretch here, they got some division games at home, some revenge situations, in particular against the Redskins and the Giants, that they have a great opportunity to win. In a playoff race, a wild card race specifically for the Eagles' case, as the Dallas Cowboys are now 8-1 and have a pretty commanding lead on and aren't looking like they're slowing down anytime soon, and look like they're at least a 12-win team, for crying out loud. Other than that, the Eagles are in a competitive NFC East division where perhaps we could see 2 wildcard teams come out of this division this year. It's hard to believe. But the Eagles certainly have a great chance at being one of them.
Yeah.
And we're going to discuss right here on the Tyler Werner Show, coming up in the next segment. Because the playoff race is coming into full form. You know, as John Madden would, once said, the real season doesn't really begin until there's frost on the pumpkins. And if you still have pumpkins out, up here in the eastern, southeastern Pennsylvania area, well, it's mid-November. I mean, next week is Thanksgiving week already. I mean, we got 7 games to go here with this regular season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Playoff race in full form right now. So on the other side, of course we got top 5 thoughts around the NFL to discuss, as always, as it was a very interesting week. Outside of what happened with this Eagles and Falcons game, it was a very interesting week. 11, I guess it is now? Week 10. Very interesting week 10. Playoff implications, starting to become a factor left and right. And when you talk about NFC teams, especially for the Philadelphia Eagles, in regards to them. So that in mind, stay tuned for more coming up on the other side, right here on the Tyler Werner Show.
I'll have some skirt steak, some brisket, little piece of that New York steak, a couple of them steak fingers, and a burger.
You've known for a long time that you were going to have to get real about fat or stay real fat. It didn't get that way by accident or by some outsider's doing.
Put some macaroni and cheese on there, too. Is there any chicken fried steak left?
Your weight just keeps creeping up or maybe even shooting sky high.
3 slices of pecan pie and 2 cups of coffee.
You have a decision to make. You know it, and so do I.
Yes, all right.
You need prescription diet pills or other diet aids to lose weight.
Number 1 box office attraction, number 1 WWE superstar, multi-time WWE champion, Brock Lesnar.
Time to revamp your office space, eh? Looking for an interior decorator? Look no further than Brock Lesnar.
Now that's the way a real man uses a sledgehammer.
Out with the old, in with the new. Give Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman a call.
Mr. Lesnar, you're the future of interior decorator. I think we're done.
The champion of game day catering is the official meatball of the Tyler Werner Show, Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs.
We prepare our balls over time, and that's the essence of the preparation.
On top of that, another trademark of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs is Brady's signature rubbing process.
When I pick balls out, to me, they're perfect. I don't want anyone touching the balls after that. I don't want anyone rubbing them. To me, those balls are perfect.
What is a concern is the texture of the balls, and again, that's the point that Tom hit on hard.
The champion of all game day catering dishes is Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, the official meatball of the Tyler Werner Show. Hey, yes, we return with top 5 thoughts around the NFL. Week 10 edition. It's hard to believe we're all the way at Week 10 in the 2016 regular season of the NFL. And starting with number 5, the Tennessee Titans hand the Packers an embarrassing 47-25 loss. And the Packers fall to 4-5 after this being their 3rd straight loss. And all I can say is, what is the matter with the Green Bay Packers?
5 letters here.
Yeah,
R-E-L.
I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going this direction right now.
We're going to be okay.
I don't. It doesn't look like the Packers are going to be okay. That's for sure. They're now 4-5, with the Lions ahead of them and the Vikings at 5-4. Well, the Vikings have lost 4 straight, so geez. But anyhow, number 4, we move to a team that has picked up a 4th straight win on the flip side. And that team is the Miami Dolphins, who started the season 1-4 and has suddenly crept into the playoff mix in the AFC. After winning their 4th straight game, they're now 5-4 after beating the Chargers 31-24. So, Dolphins perhaps a wild card team there. 'Cause I don't know, there's no way I see them catching the Patriots or anybody else in that division for that matter. So, but Dolphins, perhaps a possible wild card team in the AFC. How about that? Number 3, well, unless maybe one of these teams have something to say about it. The Kansas City Chiefs, another contender in the AFC, more so than the Dolphins at 7-2 now. The Kansas City Chiefs, they came back from a 17-0 deficit against the Carolina Panthers team. And the Chiefs turn the tables and win that game. Not giving up any more points in the second half. And the Chiefs are now 7-2 in a stacked AFC West division, along with the 7-2 Oakland Raiders, who had a bye week this week, and the 7-3 Denver Broncos team. So possibly a division there where there's going to be 2 wild card teams coming out of it, unless one falls down the rankings a little bit. That remains to be seen. But anyhow, thought number 2 around the NFL this week. It's the Dallas Cowboys. In case I didn't hint at it earlier. What a yikes. 8th straight win for the Dallas Cowboys. After a thrilling 35-30 thrilling finish against the Steelers, who I thought the Steelers team was in a desperate situation. They needed a win. The Cowboys were due for a loss, and no, didn't happen that way. Steelers fall to 4-5. 4-5 are the Steelers. Steelers are 4-5. They're in trouble. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are 8-1. The only 8-1 team in the NFL. Best record in the whole league. Go figure. We can't help but be a little jealous as Eagles fans. Can we not? It's just hard to believe the Dallas Cowboys, who were 4-12 last year. And Tony Romo was not playing, by the way. This is Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, who goes off again. Has nearly 200 yards on the ground and through the air total. 3 touchdowns. And just when it looked like the Steelers were going to win that game, the Cowboys steal it back. And move to 8-1. And very well may get home field advantage in the NFC this year. Hard to believe.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Number one thought, though, around the NFL this week, without question, the honors go to the Seattle Seahawks, who this week defeated the New England Patriots in Foxborough. You know, they travel over to the East Coast here. They go up to Foxborough and they beat the New England Patriots 31-24. They now sit at 6-2-1, which is interesting. Right now, that would technically be second in the NFC, and so Seahawks, contender right now, and of course they host the Eagles this coming week, which the Eagles got a tough test ahead of them.
Oh, no!
But again, the Patriots, who had been on fire, they were coming out of their bye week. They were 7-1 heading this game. Now they fall to 7-2. Now it's a little more, as far as the lead that the Patriots had in the AFC, it's cut down a little bit, as the Raiders are also 7-2 in that conference. And the Chiefs are now also 7-2. And the Broncos are 7-3 right there in the mix. So, not to mention, I think the Texans now are 6-3. So, there are teams in the mix there. That could possibly, I don't know, maybe steal home field advantage away from the New England Patriots. Unless, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have something to say about that.
This is the end of this subject for me for a long time.
Speaking of the end of subjects, heading into this game, the Patriots, of course, for those who haven't heard, the Bill Belichick letter to now President-elect Donald Trump last week. Claire, I just love Bill Belichick and his press conferences. Last week, as they were preparing for Seattle, if you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. YouTube, Bill Belichick. It's just classic vintage Bill Belichick. Getting asked about this letter, first of all, he kind of clarifies things up before he starts taking the questions at the press conference last week. I think it was the day after press conference or whatever, or maybe it was like the Wednesday morning one, as a matter of fact. And Bill Belichick kind of clarified, like, my letter was just kind of about friendship. It was about political views. We also had John Kerry in our locker room last week, and I couldn't imagine two guys with more polarizing political views than Donald Trump and John Kerry. And, and he kind of just says, so that's all I have to say about that. On to Seattle. And, of course, some of the New England reporters, they just start asking him about, go back to this letter of Donald Trump, and the distraction, can this team, how's your team handle these distractions, and Bill Belichick, classic Bill Belichick, just continues to respond with Seattle. Not even on to Seattle, just Seattle. And then, he just refuses to say anything else, and, just like, it just kind of grows silent, and reporters kind of give up asking questions, and Bill Belichick's just like, all right, good. Yeah. So that's pretty much that. And, and then it actually comes down to football questions. So, vintage Bill Belichick there. And, yeah. It's pretty much that. But, unfortunately, for the Patriots, Seattle comes in there and beats them. So, big win for the Seahawks. Definitely. Think about that. If the Seahawks lost that game and would have basically been 5-3, like the Dallas Cowboys would have had basically a 2.5 game lead in the NFC. They would have such a commanding lead for home field advantage. That's unbelievable. So, as we start talking about home field advantage and whatnot in the playoffs, we talk playoffs here on the Tyler Werner Show as we are getting into full force here with the playoff race.
Playoffs?
Yes. And this year, at this time, around this time last year, it's just about where we were beginning to see, like, the end of the Chip Kelly era here, as we knew it. That Tampa Bay game and then the Detroit Lions loss on Thanksgiving was just like that was last gas for the Eagles. And then somehow the Eagles managed to stay alive and had a chance to win, and by beating the Redskins when they had, and of course they came up very short in that game, and then that was pretty much a wrap on it in the Chip Kelly era here on what was a rather disappointing run as head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles in a very disappointing third season. But here we are now, week to week. It's a week-to-week league. And certainly, after this week, what the Eagles were able to do, we are looking at perhaps a wild card berth. Let's just get it out of the way now. The Cowboys, this is their division. We can forget now about competing with the Dallas Cowboys. They're a 12 or plus win team this year. Probably going to get home field advantage. All right. As much as we hate to admit it, that's the could possibly represent the NFC in the Super Bowl for that matter. As hard as it is to believe. It is as hard as it is to believe. So we can just confirm that. The Cowboys division. But what you have, all right, look, the Cowboys, we just realize they're just a better team. All right? However, the Eagles, they started 3-0 this season. And they've been cobbling together wins here and there at home against teams like the Falcons and, at the time, the Vikings, who are quality teams coming in that you were beating. So, with that in mind, and looking at the schedule ahead, I think, it's fairly reasonable that this Eagles team should be a wild card team. And I'll maybe go down their schedule in just a bit here. But here's the NFC playoff picture as of now. Let's just take a look at it right now. Everybody has played 9 games. Everybody has now had their bye week. Well, actually, except for the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC. Everybody else is... So, here we go. So, the Cowboys, 1 seed. Seahawks, for right now, for all intents and purposes, 2 seed. Falcons win the NFC South, we say. And then the NFC North, I mean, I guess for all intents and purposes, let's say the Lions win that division now, as they are 5-4. And unlike the Minnesota Vikings, they haven't lost 4 straight games and aren't looking like they're just coming undone. All right? So there's your division winners, all right? As far as the wild card picture is concerned, then, here's what we got. All right? In the NFC East, basically, you got every team here. The Giants, the Redskins, the Eagles are in it. As far as the whole conference, the Giants right now, 5th seed. They've won 4 straight. However, they, ironically enough, on the season, they actually have a fairly, they actually have a negative point differential, which is hard to believe. When you're 6-3, that's a bit unusual. But anyhow, you wonder, and they just barely eked out the Bengals. I mean, I don't know. But anyhow, they're one of the wild card teams. And, at least right now, that could change, certainly. But the Giants can be one of them. Maybe the Redskins at 5-3-1. So there's 2 spots. The Eagles right now are at 5-4. However, both of the above, Giants and Redskins, they got to come to Philadelphia to play. And again, revenge situations, home field situations for the Eagles. I'm expecting them to win those games. I expected them to beat the Giants the first time around. They didn't. And now, maybe you're starting to see maybe a little bit of a formula they're getting going here with the running game. And with maybe, lining up Darren Sproles as receiver a bit more. And again, here at home, this Eagles defense, they bring the pressure. They shut teams down for the most part. So, those are, and we'll go down the schedule then, but those are swing games, mind you. They win those games, then that changes things quite dramatically a little bit. So there's those, those 3 teams out of the NFC East, wild card contenders. It's very likely that both wild cards in the NFC are going to come from the NFC East. It's hard to believe. This has been a kind of a joke division in recent years. Not this year. You look at the NFC West, all right? The Cardinals are 4-4-1 right now. However, they're just not quite the same. I mean, they just barely beat the 49ers, for crying out loud. In an almost historically bad defense that the 49ers have, the Cardinals only put up 23 points against them. And just barely eked them out.
Was that like a wise-ass comment?
I mean, that's kind of embarrassing. Almost, in a way. So, I don't know what to make of the Cardinals. I mean, they're in the mix, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like I don't know. It may not be a playoff year for them unless they get hot. So I don't know if I see it. The Rams right now sit at 4-5. Jared Goff is going to start for them going forward, but I don't really foresee a playoff contention here for them. So again, you go to the NFC North, you have the Lions probably winning. The Packers are 4-5 now. They've lost 3 straight. They have no running game, and their defense is just in shambles right now. And Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he's not quite the same. He threw 2 picks the other day. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of the Packers this year. It's hard to believe they're 4-5 right now. I had high expectations for the Packers this year, but apparently many of us were wrong. And then the Vikings at 5-4, who are, again, they're just coming apart at the seams. I mean, their offensive coordinator just resigned this week, and they almost had that game won, and they coughed it up. And suddenly Sam Bradford, during that 5-0, he's not looking he's not looking like he did then. And defensively, they're just not the same. Now this is kind of a good thing. The more the Vikings lose, the better the Eagles draft pick from them will be. On another note, but anyhow. So there's those two. I guess you can't count the Packers out, but it's not looking good for them. The NFC South, as far as wild card, the Buccaneers, The Saints, I don't know. The Saints' schedule is kind of a little easy down the stretch, but they're inconsistent. It's hard to imagine that they're going to be a wild card contending team then. But you could possibly maybe have them in that mix. But okay, so here's what we're looking at basically as far as in the wild card race. Giants, Redskins, Eagles. We can throw the Cardinals in there. We can throw the Vikings and the Packers in there. And maybe the Saints. As a matter of fact, the Vikings and the Saints are maybes. Because the Vikings are just coming apart. And even the Packers. It's looking bleak for those teams. As far as in the wild card race goes right now, Vikings, Packers, Saints, Cardinals, that's like tier 2 right now of the wild card teams. Tier 1 is basically the Giants, Redskins, Eagles. Those are the teams, that have the most realistic shot right now. But I gotta think this Eagles team, I gotta think that they win, at least go 4-3 and finish 9-7 with the remaining games. There's a chance they could go 10-6 if they play really good football. This schedule that looked rather difficult coming down the stretch here suddenly is not looking as difficult when the Packers are just, again, they're in shambles the last few weeks. And the Bengals, who started out pretty, decent, I guess. They're 3-5. They're no good. The Ravens, they're a 5-4 team, but they could be beatable. And you got a Cowboys team in Week 17 that might be resting starters because they might have home field advantage wrapped up, as hard as it is to believe and say that. But it might be true. And therefore, a playoff bound. You got that, as well as 2 revenge situations against the Giants and the Redskins. And suddenly, this may be an Eagles playoff team this year. A playoff year for the Philadelphia Eagles, albeit a wild card. Look, we'll come up on another break here, but not like they're bound for a deep playoff run or anything of the sort. But is the accomplishment of that with a team that, it's evident they have holes, but that's an accomplishment. This team getting to the playoffs, given their limitations. And I think it's important that it's a nice step forward if they can make the playoffs. I'm going to talk more about it on the other side. Right here on the Tyler Werner Show. Be right back after this.
Okay, Rocco, pretend I'm the girl that you want to ask out on a date.
How about maybe you and I, maybe we go out together, get something to eat, I don't know, maybe laugh a little bit, who knows, you know? I don't know, would you like to maybe, you want me to go out together? What do you think? Would you like to?
You need to make more eye contact and you sound way too nervous.
You want to hear me say it? You want to break me down? All right, I'm afraid. For the first time in my life, I'm afraid.
Having a tough time asking out ladies? You need to see Clubber Lang for a lesson.
Hey, woman. Hey, woman. I bet you stay up late every night dreaming you had a real man, don't you? I tell you what, bring your pretty little self over to my apartment tonight, and I'll show you a real man.
Build confidence with the ladies like never before with Clubber Lang's dating services. The most highly recommended in all of the Delaware Valley.
I am ranked number one. One! That means I'm the best.
Investigators are calling it the heist of the century. The grand robbery of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, committed by some apparently hungry NFL officials who love their balls.
When I came in Monday morning, I was shocked to learn of the news reports about the balls and the process that happened between when they were prepared and went to the officials and went to the game.
As shocked as Belichick was of the news, perhaps Brady, the last man out of the kitchen on that Sunday night, was even more shocked to hear of the news of the theft.
I have a process that I go through. It was the same process that I always go through. When I felt them, they were perfect. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone touching those. I would zip those things up and lock them away, and that's what I thought I was doing.
As Brady and Belichick up the ante on their ball security, you'll just have to pick up a pack of their meatballs the next time you hit the grocery store and enjoy just how perfect these balls really are.
Tom's personal preferences on his ball security are something that he can talk about in much better detail than I could possibly provide.
Yes, it is the Tyler Werner Show, right here on the YouTube channel, the good old YouTube channel, and Facebook page. If you click on the link from the Facebook page, and we're talking this Eagles win and what it means going forward here, playoff implications. And speaking of, an Eagles win, how about within the last week, finally, this season, the Sixers have accumulated their first win. Yes, and it was last week. It was back-to-back overtimes against the Indiana Pacers, and first one was a loss, but the next one, last Friday night on 11/11, the Sixers reign supreme and get their first win of the season. And I guess you can almost call it year 4 of the Tankathon now, although maybe not this year. I don't think it was supposed to be an intentional Tankathon year, but nevertheless, that's what it's looking like. And of course, as our usual update on the Flyers as well. Michael Neuvert, going to be out for some time now. Steve Mason being the goaltender, basically, right now for the Philadelphia Flyers, the lead goaltender, if you want to call him that. And it continues to be an up and down season for the Flyers, like hovering around 500. After last Friday, they kind of get their doors blown off by the Maple Leafs. I was at a place called the Canal Street Pub. I guess more like Southern Reading area, and I got in there, and the Flyers were leading 3-2 at the time, and then I was shooting a little pool, and before I knew it, the Maple Leafs were taking the game 6-3, and it's just like, what happened, Flyers? It's like, what was the matter with them that night?
What the hell?
But they rebounded the next day, beating the Minnesota Wild 3-2, and then of course last night, none other than a shootout loss against the Senators, losing 2-3 ultimately, but still getting a point. So again, they continue to, I don't know, they hover around 500 right now, and I don't know what to think. It's still early in the season, so I guess we're just kind of in a wait-and-see mode with the Flyers. As things start picking up, as we, move throughout into the winter season more, through January, February, those months is the playoff race for the NHL. Because then maybe I guess we'll figure out more about this Flyers team. So let's try to figure out about this Eagles team. Because, again, the way the standings are right now, the way it's feeling, looking, most likely, the way it seems right now, the NFC East is going to yield both wildcard teams in the NFC this year. I could be wrong. Things could turn out differently. But in the last segment, I kind of broke down what I thought. The way I broke down the wild card race and where the Eagles fit in with it is essentially, as far as wild card teams, there is essentially, to me right now, like two tiers of teams that have a chance that will likely, as far as getting a wild card spot goes, as there are two wild card spots open in the NFC, and the way I see it, I'll break it down again. Right now, the Giants are at the top of that race at 6-3. You have the Redskins, who are 5-3-1. So essentially, as far as like wild card teams, like if quote unquote if the playoffs started today kind of deal, those two teams would technically be the wild card teams. Then you got this slew of, you got the Eagles at 5-4. In the NFC North, you have the Vikings who are 5-4. Let's say the Lions win that division. So the Vikings are 5-4. The Vikings seem to be falling apart, while the Lions have been, ever since they beat the Eagles, they've been playing pretty good football. So they're on the up, I guess, on the incline it seems. That takes care of 5-4 teams, basically. Then you have the Cardinals, who are 4-4-1 right now. They could be on the up, but then again, their win against the 49ers was kind of frail this week. I don't know. The fact that it was only a 3-point game kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit. You have the Packers at 4-5, who have lost 3 straight and are reeling and have a laundry list of issues this season. The Rams, who are 4-5, who are rolling out Jared Goff this week as the starting quarterback, and really, I don't know what to really make of the Rams. You have the Buccaneers, who are a 4-5 team, the Saints, who are a 4-5 team. Both teams have been pretty inconsistent and up and down. So, that's what you got. As I was saying earlier, Tier 1 in this wild card race, as far as teams who, more likely than not, are going to be there in the mix when, like, we get to the last 2 weeks of the season, these are the teams that are going to have a chance, who will most likely be fighting for spots, unless there's a dramatic change. The Giants, the Redskins, the Eagles, and I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure what to make of the Cardinals right now. You could possibly throw in Tier 1 just because in recent years they've been successful and they have veteran leadership on their team, a great coach for the most part. So, but I don't know if I can quite, maybe I'd put them at the top of Tier 2 in this wild card race. because I still don't know what to make of the Cardinals. But that's kind of what you're looking at right now. Basically, the three NFC East teams having the most viable chance to be wildcard teams. I want to go down, and again, like, for those who didn't hear, the Vikings, they're 5-4. They've lost 4 straight. They're reeling. At this point, the way their season's going, I mean, their offensive coordinator just resigned. It seems like it's going to be an ugly finish for the Vikings. It doesn't look like it's going to be a playoff year for them now. The Packers, again, it's an ugly year for them. They lost 3 straight. The Lions right now are the class of that division at the top. Not to mention with the Packers, the Eagles host them next week. Perhaps a very winnable game for them, coming off of perhaps a Seattle loss. I mean, it's going to be tough. Again, it's going to be tough for this Eagles team to go to Seattle and win. So, since I'm kind of, I guess, so to speak, previewing that game and, the future here for the Philadelphia Eagles, let's go down the schedule. Let's see perhaps how this Eagles team may finish and what it means. I want to do that with this Eagles. I want to do that with the Eagles. I want to do that with the Giants and the Redskins, since these are the 3 most likely teams to make it into wild card spots. The 2 that we have in the NFC. All right, so I just hinted. Eagles lose to the Seahawks in Seattle. That puts them at 5-5. But then they host the Packers on Monday Night Football. The Packers, I'm not sure who they're playing this week, but the Packers, again, Eagles, this home field thing with the Eagles, I mean, I'm not sure when it's going to expire, like when they're finally going to lose a game at home. But we saw what they did to the Falcons here at home, who are just, if they can do that to the Falcons, I think they can minimize what Aaron Rodgers will come do here. Not to mention the Packers defense has been reeling this year. So Eagles bounce back after a loss to the Seahawks. Not to mention the Packers, whoever they're playing this week, they may win. I'm not sure who they're playing. In fact, you know what? Since it's on my mind, let me look and see who the Packers are playing. I don't know everything off the top of my head. But let's look here. The Packers. Oh, they're playing the Redskins. They're at the Redskins. I mean, you can flip a coin there. But regardless, I think the Eagles beat them. The way this Packers team is looking. So that makes them 6-5. And then the Eagles go to the Cincinnati Bengals, who are reeling as well. And they're just not a good team. That division, mind you, is not too sharp this year either. So I could very well see a win there, where the Eagles go 7-5. And then the Redskins come to the Philadelphia Eagles. That revenge situation, I think it's a winnable game. They should win. They should be expected to win. After what the Redskins did to them in Washington last time. After that, the Eagles go to the Ravens. The Ravens have been playing pretty well. It looks like that could be their division this year. We'll say that's a loss for the Eagles. And then the Giants come to the Eagles after that. The Sunday before. Or I'm sorry, that's Thursday Night Football. Before Christmas. Where the Eagles may be wearing those black uniforms. It's all black with the whole color rush thing. Although, I don't know. Maybe black's not colorful enough, so maybe they... I don't know. But blackout game for the Eagles? I say a win. Revenge situation against the Giants at Lincoln Financial Field on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And then last week of the season, this is what I said. It could be a loss, but the Cowboys at that point may not be playing for anything. They may be resting their starters. And on top of that, because they may have home field advantage, for crying out loud. Who'd have thunk that? But that's the reality. They're for real. I mean, two more wins, and it's like they've already theoretically locked up a playoff spot. Because 10-6 to me is going to get you in, no matter what, as a wild card team. 9-7 might even get you in. But here's the thing, all right? The Eagles lose to the Seahawks. The Eagles beat the Packers. They beat the Bengals. Beat the Redskins. And beat the Giants. That right there is 9 wins. Maybe that Cowboys game, that might be a gift at the end of the year because they may be resting their players. And I can allow for... that's the thing, too. They could lose to the Giants. They could possibly afford a loss to one of those teams. Even though it would be disappointing, they could maybe afford a loss to the Bengals. One of those games, they might be able to afford a loss to, finish 9-7, and still get in. They'll hold tiebreakers against the Vikings, the Packers, as they will have beaten them the way I have it. They will have... I don't know. I think that's all that is really concerned. But as far as division games go, let's look at other opponents in the division, as a matter of fact, now that we're on that subject. Let's look at the Redskins, who are a little... I wouldn't say that they're quite at the level the Giants are playing right now. Giants are a little hotter. Let's look at the Redskins' schedule. See how they may finish. Of course, they're 5-3 in 1 right now. So they have the Packers this week. The Packers, however, they're in a desperate situation right now. They need a win. And the Redskins, I don't know. The Eagles, they should have beaten, and they came out unprepared. I can see a Packers win here. It's hard to, they've lost 3. It's hard to imagine them losing a 4th straight game. And if the Eagles, I don't know, if the Redskins do beat them, that's not good. Because then that likely means to me that, the Packers will be even more desperate. Although at that point they'll be all but kind of shot. I don't know. But for all intents and purposes, let's say things even out. The Packers win here. The Redskins fall to 5-4-1. The week after that, they got to go to the Cowboys. Probably another loss. 5-5-1. The week after that, they got to go to the Cardinals. That's a tough game. And then the week after that, they go to the Eagles. All right, so let me be fair here. Let me allow one of these games to be a win. All right? They're not going to lose all these games. Maybe they go to the Cardinals and win. I don't know. Maybe they do beat the Packers this week. But the Redskins, they're playing. Their schedule gets a little tough here. they could go likely they might go 1-3 throughout these games. Or at best they go 2-2. But I'm thinking they go 1-3 here. This is a bit of a tough situation for them. There's no cupcake teams they're playing here. Let's put it that way. They're all teams that are in the playoff mix / desperate / on the rise / like Dallas Cowboys looking at home field advantage. So they go 1-3 here. 6. That puts them at like 6-1. They host the Panthers after that. They should win that game. And then they go to the Bears. They should win that game. But then the week after that, the Giants, another division game. I don't think they're going to win 3 straight. Not to mention the Giants are going to be desperate, having lost to the Eagles the week before in the blackout game on Thursday Night Football. Not to mention they'll have had an extra 3 days preparation on New Year's Day. So that's another loss in there for the Redskins. So the Redskins, they will probably finish 8-7-1. At best, 9-6-1. So the Eagles, if they finish 10-6, they're in. Well, let me just put it that way. They finish 10-6, they're in. 9-7 could still pass if, like, the Redskins, for instance, finish 8-7-1. That tie is very interesting with the Redskins. And let me just look at the Giants' schedule. Let's go through their schedule the rest of the way. All right, this week they got the Bears, hosting the Bears. They probably win that game. Then the week after that, they go to the Browns. They probably win that game. That puts them at 8-3. So unless they have a hiccup here, it might be 8-3. The week after that, they got the Steelers. Steelers in a desperate situation like the rest of the season. All right, they almost beat the Cowboys. I thought they were going to, but the Cowboys, they just continue the roll. And this is at the Steelers. That's a Giants loss. So that puts them at 8-4. And then the Cowboys go to the Giants. That's an interesting game. I'm not sure where the Cowboys will be at that point. I don't know if they will have lost a game already or what, but they got the Lions the week after that. The Lions going to the Giants. So I'm going to say they split between those two games. And then that would put the Giants at 9-5. Last 2 weeks of the season, Giants go to the Eagles. Giants lose. 9-6. 9-6. And then the Giants at the Redskins on New Year's Day. I just mentioned that the Giants will be in a desperate situation after loss and will maybe beat the Redskins that game. All right, so I can't be hypocritical here. I can't have what do you want to call it? A plot hole. If we're talking movies here or something. The NFL sometimes it is like a movie. So the Giants finished 10-6. We'll put it that way. The Eagles may also finish 10-6, as I mentioned. But I think at worst, Giants finish 10-6. The Giants are a 10-6 wildcard team. Probably the 5th seed. Now, if the Eagles finish 10-6, I believe it comes down to head-to-head, which would be a split, and then division record, which, let's see, the Eagles could finish 3-3. Yeah, I think most likely, if the Eagles finish 10-6, will be because the last game of the season, they beat the Cowboys, who are resting starters, which would make the Eagles 3-3 in the division. The Giants, let's see. I'm not sure. I have to let me look at the division record then, so I can figure this out. Giants division record. Division record. Go to Google, and of course, it's not giving me the division record. It just gives me. It's not giving me the details that I want to get here. Let me go to standings. Let me see if that'll. You know what? Maybe we'll just have to go to ESPN.com or something. Look at that. I'm giving a little plug here to ESPN. Not like they need a plug from me. Oh well. Well, we'll go to. I'm not sure exactly how they're doing so far in the division. But like I said, the Eagles, they finish 3-3 in the division if they go 10-6. Essentially, things will probably turn out how I just mentioned. All right, here we go. Let's go. Let's scroll down here. Right now, the Giants are 2-1 in the division. They beat the Redskins that last game of the year. That makes them 3-3 because they lose to the Eagles and then they lose to the Cowboys in there. So that's a 3-3 division record as well. If this is like scenario A, best case scenario for the Eagles in the wild card picture, then I guess it would it come down to common opponents? Would it come down to conference? It may come down to conference. Right now, the Giants are 4-3 in the conference. So, this is something to talk about. But maybe right now the Giants have the edge in the conference record. So we'll just say we'll just say for all intents and purposes, both teams finished 10-6. The Eagles would be 6th seed and probably go to Atlanta. Or maybe the Lions finish better than them. I don't know. But it looks like the Seahawks are 2nd and the Cowboys are 1st. But as far as wild card teams go, the Eagles, they may be trending upward. They got a tough test against the Seahawks this week. Probably a loss, and that's pretty much that. I'm interested in seeing what this defense can do, though. Because the Seahawks do not have the greatest offensive line. They have a mobile Russell Wilson, of course. But obviously the offense is going to have a tough test in that building. And we'll see what Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz and this running game can muster up this week. And we'll know more about the playoff race and where the Eagles stand in it next week after this game. And the other games, for that matter. So we'll come back next week on the Tyler Werner Show, as always, and we will discuss and see where they stand as the playoff race is in full form. Big game this week. We'll see if the Eagles can pull it off. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, as always, to the Tyler Werner Show, and we'll be back next week to talk more Eagles football and other Philadelphia sports as they come to us. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you.